All right, everybody, welcome to the Pro Marketer Podcast, where we talk about how you can grow any kind of tax or accounting practice. I'm so thankful to share with you today Jackie Myers, CPA, and a lot of you might know who she is. She's built a name for herself within the industry. She's pretty active on tax Twitter, etc., which is where I kind of first saw her because I was creeping on that hashtag and I saw a lot of people talking with Jackie. But she's also built some pretty special things that I'm excited for her to share about. In particular, she has built a practice and is dedicated to building kind of a mastermind group and a group of practitioners who themselves are dedicated to building at scale in a human pace and building a practice that serves the practitioner as well as the clients and not just one at the expense of the other, right? I mean, because golly, Jackie, you've probably seen this. There's a lot of people out there who will give you the secret to serving yourself really well in your business. And then there's a lot of people who it's hustle harder, hustle to serve your clients at the expense of self. And so what I'm excited to hear about is the revelations that you've been percolating on, especially during this past busy season. But quickly about her, she was 40 under 40 CPA advisor winner 3 times. I'm no longer eligible for that award, which kind of makes me mad. But she was the American Institute of Certified Tax Coaches Member of the Year a couple years ago, and she's been on the Intuit Tax Council. She's got all these accolades, but what you'll discover as you engage with her, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with her, she's just got this warmly inviting personality and presence on various platforms that I think sets a lot of people free to pursue the kind of practice that they really want, and not just one that is following the template of what's out there, right? I think she really helps people imagine and build real practically a practice that serves clients and them well. So she's got a software company that is to that end that she's going to tell us about, a new offering that I think is pretty exciting for the industry, and a mastermind group, and of course her own CPA firm. So that's a mouthful.
All
Jackie, how you've got a couple children that are young. I'm a little intimidated by you.
Well, hey, you're the one that's genius or something. So
okay, I'll tell you this. I'm kind of embarrassed to publicly admit this. This is just sort of a little Easter egg for anybody who listens to this episode. They're going to get the Mensa story. It was based on a 3rd grade IQ test.
No. That is amazing. I love it.
I was in a gifted and talented program that you had to, do the IQ test to be in. And 10 years ago, my younger sister, who's she worked for Blackstone and then, Citigroup and blah, 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 super high-end accountant type, Wall Street, et cetera. She needed it. She wanted it for her, her CV. And so she said, hey, Nate, we can be in Mensa. You just have to turn in the IQ test we took in 3rd grade. I'm doing it. You should do it too. So I just said, okay, apply for me. She did it and they let me in.
That's amazing. So let it be known, if Nate can do it, we could all do it.
Exactly.
No, just kidding.
But I still put it in my LinkedIn profile.
I would brag about that too. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's totally meaningless. But
that's really neat. But yeah, it seems like we haven't really run into a whole lot of each other over the years, but we have a lot in common. So I'm definitely excited to be here and to chat with you today.
Yeah. So tell us your story of your practice. I imagine there was an evolution that brought you to some of the revelations that you are operating out of now related to owner mental clarity and burnout. We were talking just beforehand offline about what we're seeing in the industry, and man, oh man, is client work ever more challenging, right? And the level of angst, the level of anxiety just in the marketplace and in the atmosphere is real, on top of IRS baloney. I mean, just all the stuff. So tell us a little bit of the story of the genesis of your practice and how you got to the point where you're at now.
Sure. So I was fired from the last CPA firm I worked at.
Awesome.
I was constantly pushing buttons and I wanted to move into South Lake where I currently live, and they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to do this. and I got canned. And that was back in
Great way to start.
2010. Yeah. Great way to start. And I bawled my eyes out. I'm not a big crier. I'm very logical, left brain kind of person, but I bawled because my pride was just so shook. And my husband and I say now it was like one of the best things to ever happen to me, because it forced me into starting my own CPA firm. The firm became very successful very quickly. In 2016, we completely converted the practice from kind of more of a traditional method to tax planning and value pricing. And we're very niche boutique with high net worth clientele, and we love it. So
pause there for a moment, because there's a number of, our clients here at Tax Pro Marketer and people who read my emails and are on our system that maybe sort of in that journey still, right? So would you unfold that decision a little bit for me, from moving from charging by the form or by the hour, what have you, to the value pricing model? Tell me about that.
Well, I had hit my rock bottom in the practice. I had a really good practice. It was making money. I was micromanaging everything though, and I was trying to control everything too much. And I kind of hit my rock bottom when I had kids. And I realized like I can't do it all anymore. Yeah. Yeah. So I feel bad for people. They ask me like, what if I don't have kids? How do I change?
They are such a useful way to kind of like say no.
Yes, exactly.
Not just in business, by the way, but in life. It's a beautiful cheat code. Sorry, carry on.
It really reprioritizes what's important in life. An IRS notice is not the end of the world. Tax returns, although it feels so stressful daily, the jobs that we have to do, and it is very stressful. It's heavy work. It's nothing compared to making sure that you're maintaining those relationships with your family and your friends and all that stuff. And so I sought out a coach at the time. His name's Chuck Bauer, and he helped me transform my practice. He asked me which clients that I like to work with and why. And from that, we just started converting one client at a time over to value pricing. We were able to triple fees and honestly, like equally decrease the time involved with each client. So I'm a huge advocate for tax planning. I feel like it is such a big value add, and it's so win-win to solve so many of the problems of our industry.
Yes. No, I thoroughly agree. And I've been in the industry for almost 20 years now, and I employ a tax planner, probably somebody that you know, Jackie, actually, because I found him through the network that you're a part of. Dominique is a good friend, but it's always a funny thing when you're serving the industry and you actually like pay for the help. Right. But the reality is, like, when I've got 18 employees, and when you've got a lot going on and 7 children, I don't have the time to execute all the different things that I would want to execute in a variety of different contexts. And so I'm happy to pay. And I tell people I pay $1,500 a month for this gentleman's services, and I'm very happy. And on top of that, I'm also paying $2,000 a month for kind of a CFO type advisory kind of person on the side, because I don't have the bandwidth and the time. And that kind of blows some people's brains when they hear that, especially in our industry, who are used to slinging $500 tax returns, and they realize, wait a minute, I could be like doing a lot of the same work. And the reality is, I don't even barely take advantage of my $1,500 a month tax planner to the level that I should and could, and he'd be glad to offer to me. But I'm not mad because of the savings that he has already provided for me and for my partners and other businesses. And in this one, it pays for itself. So I'm happy about it. Right. So how many of your clients, Jane, Joe listener, might be in the same position where, they're fine paying $1,000 a month or $1,000 for your tax return, and maybe $2,000 for a business return. Those are healthy fees in the tax preparation world. But they might just be just as happy to pay that monthly for an ongoing relationship where you provide value that actually doesn't have to exhaust you, the tax professional, right? I mean, is that kind of what we're talking about, Jackie?
Oh, exactly. Our clients average paying us about, $1,000 to $1,500 a month. We have less than 100 clients so that we can focus on all of them. And if you do the math, it's still $1 million practice, and we're not just killing ourselves every day. Right. And we have about 10 on staff. Every client has an assigned project manager. We try to be different from that norm. Right. And it really does work.
That's fantastic. So out of that experience, it sounds like you got a hankering to begin to help other accountants in this journey. And you and Chuck kind of joined together a little bit. So that's a unique thing. You don't see that every day, where
Yeah.
a coaching student connects up with the coach to kind of create a new portion of what he was providing, right? Is that sort of what you guys did? Seems like you guys jointly, because he's good with people, you're bad with people. I can see that that's kind of the reality.
Oh, thanks, Nate. I appreciate it.
No, I'm sure he's great with people, but you're good with people. So I know it's like there's so much more to it than that, but you seem to be a convener type. You seem to be somebody that like has a gift for connecting and like making groups feel at home together. So I could see why you would thrive running a mastermind group.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
for that backhanded compliment.
It started out backhanded, but then it was front-handed.
So yeah, that's exactly what happened. You know, I was having tremendous success. I was implementing left and right with what Chuck told me to do. And then one day he just asked me like, hey, you should be doing this too. And it really brought my world full circle because as a kid, I actually wanted to be a counselor. I ran away from that environment because kind of my own poor family life and whatnot. And so I was like, I got to do business stuff. Business won't hurt me. Business will take care of myself for the rest of my life. But coaching lets me do that without getting too involved in everyone's personal lives, right? So I can help them manage the stress and anxieties in the business world. And it's a really nice thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you guys have been running that together for a couple of years. It's called the Concierge CPA Mastermind.
Yeah. Certified concierge accountant. So
okay. Excuse me.
yourcca.com, and we run about 4 or 5 masterminds a year. I also recently kicked off a tax planning masterclass that I do with one of my team members, Charlotte. And so, yeah, we're having a blast with the coaching side of things for sure.
Yeah. And it's really emerging just industry wide. I think everybody who's going to be listening to this podcast and who pays attention to our various communications, yours and mine, is aware that this is where the industry is headed. I mean, this is where it has to go, because the model of paying, charging clients by the form, while there will always be tax practitioners and great tax preparation businesses out there. In fact, we have some awesome clients that serve thousands of clients, and they do it well because they've got a good team and they're way better than a block. They're kind of providing good service at scale, right? And that's its own kind of category of practice, right? But I think a lot of people came into this industry with a real hunger to serve clients directly and not necessarily just sort of build a scalable entity, right? They want to serve the clients and they want to like be in that daily kind of execution mode on behalf of clients. But it can be so exhausting. I mean, tell me about, I'm sure you've heard crazy stories from this past tax season. Obviously, we got the advanced child tax credit that just was a show, on top of the first year with the April 15th deadline or April 18th, whatever it was, in a couple of years, and still some of these SBA programs that are out there and all the cleanup work for that, and for the IRS losing 30 million information returns and just
throwing them out, right?
Yeah, right. Misplaced creatively.
Yeah, it was a disaster. It was the worst tax season for, I would think, over half of the professionals out there. And I was trying to pinpoint why, because it's not like we had huge tax law changes like we've had in past years. The forms didn't change a whole lot. I think everyone's just so burnt out. They're so burnt out, and they're just have hit like a point where they just can't keep going.
Well, accountants, but also clients.
Yes. Everyone's upset. Everyone's pissed off about life. Yep. And it's a really hard place to be in, but we have to somehow find our way back to being a blessing to our clients and being a blessing to our teams and to ourselves, giving ourselves a grace. Because I can't figure it out if we're workaholics first and then became accountants, or if we were accountants first and then became workaholics. But man, this industry is just full of them.
No, it's really true. I actually, it's one of my favorite things just from a team management standpoint to hire workaholics and help kind of let them under kind of our wings, so to speak, learn to have a healthier balance about it, because there's actually a real value in the workaholic approach, because there's like a work ethic to that, but there's an unhealthy side to it that we too often lean into, especially as accountants and practitioners, because I think we see the raw numbers and we see really clearly the pitfalls when the work isn't done well, right? Like we can see in real cold, red and black, what's going on. And maybe not every profession has that same kind of binary feedback loop, right? With the work and the value of the work, et cetera. And so it lends itself to practitioners really kind of going overboard and losing themselves in the process. So yeah, this is, I know, a really important thing that you are talking to a lot of practitioners about right now. So tell me about some of the things that you are helping people work through. Like, how do you solve that in a CPA? How do you solve that workaholic tendency where, like, are there boundaries that you suggest people put into place? Tech solutions? I don't, is there a software out there that could help people with tax planning,
Oh, well, maybe. I don't know.
No, put a pin in that, because I do want to hear about that.
Okay.
But let's just talk a little bit more non-techie. Are there policies and things that you help people put into place that work?
So step one, Nate, is admitting you have a problem.
Right. That's a big step. Most people don't.
That is a big step. Most people cannot get there. And that's why we've coached about 150 people through our program so far. I wish we could reach so many more, but people unfortunately won't admit that there's a problem.
Right.
So you have to admit that, and you need to accept that there's better methods and accept help. And so once you get to that point, which, I mean, we could talk all day about how people, whether they hit rock bottom to get to that point, or if
maybe they hear a podcast episode that helps them realize that wait a minute.
Maybe. Yeah.
What are some symptoms? What are some symptoms of it? Let's just name some of that. If people might not be able to see and be able to come to themselves and realize, okay, I've got a problem here. What are some things that are commonalities of workaholics in our profession?
Yeah. So I have actually a questionnaire, and I'll try to pull it up while we're talking, with a speech I'm developing right now. But essentially, at the end of the day,
is it a quiz I can take? They can tell me like what level of workaholic I am?
Yes. So
I love quizzes.
Let me pull it up.
People love quizzes. I'm a marketer. You should know.
This is cool. You're going to get the very special preview of my next big speech. All right. Do you enjoy work more than personal activities?
Well, so am I supposed to answer these questions? Because I don't know. It feels a little too much. It's too personal right now, Jackie.
Oh, okay. Well, I know I could answer yes to all of these things. I could still answer yes to them. I am obsessed with work. And even when I've gotten work off my plate at my CPA firm, I work about 4 hours a week in a CPA firm, and then I just take on something else. So I took on coaching. Then I took on being a tax software developer. Now I'm doing a doctorate in leadership, right? So I have the same problem as everyone else, but we've got to help each other through this, right?
Okay.
So yeah, do you enjoy work more than personal activities? Are you available for clients, nights, weekends, vacation time?
That's a biggie.
Yeah.
That's a huge one. And those that are willing to say yes to that level of availability are kind of opening Pandora's box and starting a hamster wheel that is hard to get off of.
Right. Now,
how do you get out of that? How do you get out of that, by the way? Do you have a like, if you've given your text, you just change your number? No,
you can text them back and just have a little script that you can copy and paste when people text you. That's essentially like, hey, I'm really trying to implement a new system here where I can better serve you. And honestly, I'm not going to remember to get to your work if you're texting me about it. Can you please email me and I will get back to you as soon as possible.
Boom.
Yeah. Simple. So you're just setting a boundary, you're throwing it back at them. And if they still can't accept it, then you have to reevaluate that relationship, because it's not a healthy one, right?
No, it's not, for sure. Codependency alert.
Yep. Codependency. Yeah. And I'll tell you, like, Dr. Henry Cloud has some great books on boundaries.
Boundaries. Yep.
Yep. And there's boundaries for leaders. There's boundaries in your personal life. And it's at the end of the day, literally, like, I don't want to oversimplify what Chuck and I do, but literally that's all we're teaching people to do is set appropriate boundaries.
Yep.
in their
It's a
life.
huge deal. It's a huge deal. And I think people don't realize that they have a problem with it. That's the thing. And so that's why it's so important for you to highlight that as like the number one first step. Because after you realize it, then you're into solution mode, right? Then there's lots of different things that you can just test out that will help you achieve the goal that you now know that that you have. But I think a lot of people feel like they just can't, they can't not do these things, right? Or else their practice will implode or their clients will fall apart. I mean, like, how do you get somebody who feels like they're the linchpin for 300 businesses to relent?
I tend to ask people.
You got to go deeper, it seems like, right?
Yeah, I tend to ask, do you really, like, when they don't want to let go of clients or they want to keep on doing this like generalist work instead of really honing in on their value add, I ask them, do you really think that you're serving these clients the best possible way that you can?
Mm-hmm.
And they always answer, their shoulders kind of slump and they're like, no, I'm not. Yeah. And I said, you have to make a change here. You need to let go of clients so you can better serve the ones you have.
Yep.
And really bring your true value to the table. And that tends to click with a lot of people. It's hard though. It's so hard to say goodbye to those pro bono clients or the ones you took on the first year in your practice. But it's not the best thing for anyone involved for you to keep doing that work.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I've got that song stuck in my head now that you said that.
Which one?
So hard to say goodbye.
Oh.
Brought me back to high school right there.
Yeah, right. There you go. Right.
But I'm showing my age. This is why I'm no longer 40 under 40. All right. Yeah, it really is tricky to make that shift. All right. So that's step one. Are there other questions that you ask people in this quiz that you haven't yet brought out?
Well, this one made me feel ashamed of myself because it was so true for me. Are you irritated when you can't work? And I would get irritated. I would get irritated if someone tried to take me away from work. I would not be able to focus on my family whenever I wasn't working.
That's an ouchie for a parent or a spouse right there.
Yep. Big ouchie. And there's other things. I mean, if you're commonly working more than 40 hours a week, you're probably a workaholic. It just is what it is. Don't just accept that our industry is going to work 60 hours a week and that's okay. Or don't just accept that February to April, you're going to kill yourself mentally and physically for this work. But don't worry, because May I'll be able to take off. Well,
you know what? Another problem there is the model. Right. So there's a variety of people who make all of their money from mid-January to, mid-April.
Right.
And then they justify that with the 5-hour weeks, through the rest of the year. But is that a way to really live? Could there be a better way is, I guess, the big question.
Well, I know I am completely highly functioning A-type personality. I've got 3 businesses and I couldn't do it. I couldn't keep up with those hours. So if there's someone out there that's has the best life ever and they're mentally and physically healthy as can be, let's hear it, because I don't see that in our profession. I see people having depression. I see anxiety. I see fibromyalgia. I see chronic fatigue. I see all these ways that this is weighing people down. And so I just want to be a part of just lifting that weight off of people because I know exactly what it feels like.
No, I love that. I want to connect with more people like you in the industry, Jackie, because this is becoming a really important thing. In fact, I don't mind saying that a lot of our clients, we've done too good of a job for them during tax season. And we had some people put their marketing on pause, which isn't ideal for us, but that's fine because we're fine. But man, if I could solve this for my clients, if I could help them move closer and closer to your model and be comfortable with maybe not a lesser work product, but less involvement from them, and maybe find other ways to solve the client issues that come besides them, then that would be a dream. I mean, I think you and I need to have a conversation online about how I can have you help my people.
That sounds great. I love it. Yeah. And we want we don't want firms to have to stop marketing or stop bringing in new clients. We just want you to like literally just be more selective about the clients to where you're like, oh, wow, I'm good at this, this, and this client needs those exact things. And it's going to be so win-win in this relationship. Or even just like evaluating personality types and being like, wow, I don't think I can work with this kind of personality type very well. So there's all kinds of ways that you can pre-qualify clientele as you are growing the business and marketing to really make the relationship much better.
No, absolutely. And that's part of why we've moved towards in the last year, instead of just sort of some basic information gathering on behalf of our clients from a lead scoring standpoint, but we kind of put every lead through kind of a series of questionnaires that give people a lot more data about the kind
I love that.
Yeah. Especially in an atmosphere, it's a win-win. And I don't want to talk, I want to hear more about your stuff, but it's a win-win for us, for our clients rather, because they can know if a client is not going to be a tire kicker a little bit more. And then the client or the prospective client feels like this CPA practitioner or whatever is going to be a lot more knowledgeable on the front end before the conversation, right? So it actually serves both interests well, because the prospective client really gets that feeling and they're able to communicate a little bit of the stuff. They don't have to waste 10 minutes going over the numbers or what have you in the first part of the conversation. And then the CPA can actually like say, well, you know what, we might not be the best fit for what you're looking for. Here's the competitor that I don't like down the street that might serve you better. So, yeah.
Yep. We advocate for the same thing, pre-qualification. You can tell a lot about if someone's going to be a good client or a PETA client based on the way that they respond to those initial questions. Right?
Yep. For sure.
So it's a huge component. I'm glad to hear that y'all added that.
Yeah. We used to kind of, our primary lead generation was a downloadable white paper for a long time, and it worked really well. But the last 2 years, it's been 2 tax seasons that we really had this in place, and it's been a big game changer for our clients. So speaking of game changers, let's talk about Tax Plan IQ and why you built that. And are you a coder? Do you even code?
No, I don't know anything about programming. Although my dad and my grandpa on that side and a lot of my uncles are engineers. So maybe that's where I just have I've loved numbers, logic, and I've loved computers and technology and stuff.
Sure.
So I had this idea in my head for several years about why are we using all of these Excel worksheets? Why are we recreating the wheel when it comes to doing every single tax plan for a client? And where do I get basic implementation steps for a strategy? And during COVID, it finally kind of came to a head, and I approached my practice management software developer and said, hey, can you create this for me? Here's, this is out of my head. Let's get this out. I want to, change our industry and revolutionize everything. And they agreed. So we created Tax Plan IQ. I'm now a software developer, and
there
it's
you are.
Such a different world.
Yep.
But it's
You're
so
a SaaS
fun.
founder.
Do I?
You're a SaaS founder now.
Yes, exactly. And I love it. I love being able to think up an idea and then have it in a software product within a few days.
So what's the use case for this software? I'm Joe CPA who does manual tax planning. Is it just replace some of that an introductory type work that I can then kind of tweak on my side and go a little grittier and nerdier? How does this work?
Yeah, so it's essentially what I like to say is like the tax manager you never had. So we're not trying to replace the accountant ever. We're trying to supplement the accountant, and it's managing the entire tax planning engagement from the beginning of the engagement, where you utilize what I call my ROI method of selling the tax plan. So we're showing, okay, here I can save you $50,000 in tax savings per year. Our cost is, or your investment in us is $15,000 a year. Here's your ROI. The clients are like, whoa, this is amazing. Let's do it. And you sign up that client, and then it tracks all the tasks involved in implementing each strategy within a client's plan. So
Okay.
it's an entire tax planning engagement from beginning to end.
So it's more than
And
Listio or something like that. It's actually a little bit more specific to the tax
it is, yeah.
workflow. Yeah.
And it talks with, our practice management software, which is called Count. I don't know if you've heard of that, but in the future, we hope for it to talk to other softwares as well,
Sure.
so that the workflows can be shared and that kind of thing. But for now, hey, at least we've got workflows for tax planning somewhere, which is, new.
It's unique. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So I want to ask you something that I asked a few other guests, and I could probably figure out your answer to the question based on the conversation we've already had, but be a prophet for a few minutes for me and talk to me based on what you're seeing, coaching different practitioners and what have you, and in the tax plan IQ world and just in your mastermind group. What do you see as like the biggest shifts and dragons to slay for practitioners over the next couple of years? Like what do you like projecting forward? What do you feel like people need to be focusing on?
Well, it's really funny that you, at the beginning of this interview, you said we would talk about some revelations that I've had. And before the podcast, I was jotting down a couple notes on things I wanted to talk to you about, and that word came to my mind. And I was like, that is a really odd word.
Indeed.
For a podcast interview. I don't know how that's going to come into play, but it is really fitting. There's a lot of turmoil in our industry, and I just want to try to bless each accountant that's out there to make life a little bit easier on them. We have got to figure out where the accountant's value add is and hone in on that. I don't care if it's tax planning. Tax planning is the most profitable, and it gives you the happiest clients. I will tell you that. But you might want to do outsourced CFO services. You might want to focus in a whole, different area or niche, but you have to be bringing something to the table. You can't just be doing compliance work.
Oh, I was going to say, I still think there's a way to do it in compliance work that isn't like there's a way to structure a compliance oriented business that doesn't have to kill you. I don't believe that you just have to do tax planning to create happy clients. I think it's a different kind of nut to crack, and it requires staffing and scaling. As I mentioned earlier, there's practices out there that serve thousands of clients and do it well, but it requires a whole different kind of skill set, and it probably requires a little distance from your client base that maybe not everybody wants to have.
But still, Nate, even in a compliance only practice, if they're successful, it's because they're bringing something to the table that other firms aren't doing.
That's exactly right. No, that's exactly right. Communication,
so
I think,
there's a value add there, whether it's
Yep.
tangible or intangible.
Yep.
There's something unique about that practice that's really making them shine.
Well, yeah, again, I don't want to toot our horn, but like what we see when people do email marketing, because we do like this relationship oriented weekly email marketing on behalf of our clients in various different, so there's a SMB track and there's kind of a personal family track of content. And then there's also sort of advisory track where we don't talk about taxes. But when people do that, when they actually just stay closely connected to their client base, it almost doesn't matter what service they're providing, or even like if it's like a monthly or yearly transaction, that relationship stays strong and it's something on which to build. And it makes pricing conversations a lot easier, because when there's that sense of real relationship that occurs, which I will grant to you is a lot simpler when you're in a monthly engagement. It's a lot simpler to build that relationship when you're talking once a month, or your team is touching directly the client once a month, right? Or more, but as long as that touch is occurring, that can really, really make a difference and kind of state of mind and quality of life and relationships with clients, right? But that is, I think the things that you're talking about are kind of next level though. I think the things that you're talking about really go beyond marketing, go beyond kind of positioning and authority content, whatever. Relationship oriented content. What you're talking about is real value add. And I that's why I'm thrilled to have had you here. Before I let you go, because I know you've got children to play with, and I love that, just give people kind of the best ways to connect with you and how they can hear more about this tax planning software that you've built, maybe the mastermind. drop some URLs. We'll put it in the show notes. Maybe it's just the one best place. Is it JackieMeyerCPA.com that people should go to?
The best place to go to kind of see everything going on. I have a Facebook group called Accounting Firm Influencers, which I would love listeners to join.
Okay, I'm going to plug that group. I'm a part of that group. I don't know if you knew that.
Cool.
Yeah, you let me in.
Yay!
You shouldn't have, but you did. And actually, that's been an awesome resource for me to get a tap on kind of real people in our industry, because it's way more healthy than tax Twitter. I think
tax Twitter is something else.
Show. No, but that's a great group. No, I do encourage people to check that out.
We're talking about really practical ways, practical questions and answers on a daily basis as to how we can better our firms. But you never let me answer the actual question, which was, what do I see happening over the next couple of years?
What?
So quickly.
Did I interrupt you talk about myself? I would never do that.
Okay, that's okay. I just want to say, like, we're literally losing accountants left and right. And so if people don't get help for this workaholic problem that we have going on in our industry for themselves, do it for other people, do it for their family members, do it for their colleagues and their staff, because we cannot continue this industry the way that it's been going. No one's going to want to work in it. And there's so many wonderful blessings that we can provide in this industry if we can just get some of these details worked out and, get people's work-life balance back into place. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents for what we need to focus on over the next couple of years.
I love that. I'm so glad you fought to get that in. Thank you.
All right, no problem.
I'm sorry that I was a little narcissistic in my.
That's okay. That's okay. But yeah, so definitely go to JackieMeyerCPA.com. It's MEYER. People can email me if this spurred any particular questions or thoughts. I would love to hear from you. CPA@MeyerTax.com.
What's your cell phone number? Can people text you?
No, not doing that. You'll get a text back. I've decided not to be texting people anymore. Please email me. So, yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to end the recording here. Jackie, thank you so much. This has been really good. I do recommend that people go connect with her on the various platforms, that Facebook group, her website, get on her email list. I think you'll find that to be an extremely valuable component of your kind of growth over the next 2 years, is to really lean into these things that we've talked about. So thanks, everybody.